Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to wherever you are in this galaxy far, far away. My name's Charlie Savage,
My name's Ethan.
and welcome to episode 26 of Outer Rim Radio, the podcast made by Star Wars nerds for Star Wars nerds. We're back with another episode, and today we're discussing Star Wars Convergence, a High Republic novel written by, I'm sorry if I butcher your name, Zoraida Cordova. And
Got it.
yeah. And let me tell you, Ethan and I, we've been dying to talk about it for a while since we initially planned to read this almost a year ago.
Yeah, when it first came out.
Yeah.
Oh, but before we hop into that, Charlie, we have some really fun news to talk about today.
Yes, we do.
Some actual Star Wars news. So I'll let you kind of take it away with that.
Yeah, so today brand new trailer for Ahsoka just came out, and it came out with an exact release date, which is wonderful, and that release date is Wednesday, August 23rd, 2023. And I'm super excited. We got some great shots. There's definitely some interesting things going on in these trailers, but the one that most people are talking about, well, there's two, but the Inquisitor theory, I'm of the mind that the Inquisitor is just going to be kind of a nobody. But a bunch of other people are throwing out names like, could that be Ezra? Doubtful. Very doubtful. Mara Jade, Barasafi, Starkiller, or is it just the 8th brother? Because we haven't seen him actually die. Other than when his helicopter lightsaber stopped helicoptering.
I mean, it's one of the main rules of storytelling and movies and all that. If you don't see the body, he's not dead.
Yeah.
Them's the rules. Look what happened with Palpatine. We should have all known that was going to be a bunch of movie bullshit from the very beginning. George Lucas was just too much of a idiot to show it's a body.
I mean,
has to watch him disintegrate.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that explosion sufficed at the time.
Nope.
No one else for 40 years? Cool. Just me?
Nope, just all this guy chilling in a cave.
35, 40 years, yep. But yeah, what do you think of the Inquisitor theories? Do you think it's anyone?
I think if they want to go the route of it being Ezra, I think there would have been a lot setting that up to begin with, and I think it'd be kind of jarring. I think if that's going to happen, we will kind of have some inklings in the first episode. Like, if there's a lot of Ezra being brought up, that's probably going to mean he's going to show up later. Yeah. I honestly am of the opinion that it's either nobody or the 8th brother, purely because I think this show is going to focus on where Ahsoka is in the Force. And although you could argue Ezra would test that, I think it does kind of detract from her having her own story.
Yeah. And part of me expects this is where we'll finally get the answer to the Ezra question. But the other part of me is like, they could totally just be like, oh yeah, that's a season 2, season 3 thing. Like, if that's a thing that happens.
Rosario Dawson's already like asking for, like, she's made comments that suggest she wants a season 2. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if this is happening. I also think Ezra is a character alone that would warrant his own spinoff.
Right.
He is
entirely possible.
For hardcore fans, he is insane. Like, that's an insanely devoted character. And Rebels did a lot to kind of explore like time travel and wild space and a lot of like the kind of niche areas that were only explored in what we would now call Legends. So I think that would kind of be a waste. The only one that would be cool is, people said Barasafi. I think it's unlikely, but I do think it would be interesting to bring back that character, because that was, I should say, Ahsoka's friend.
Yeah, and that's, basically she's the reason why Ahsoka ends up leaving the Order, and I think for Ahsoka, I think that would be the most interesting and compelling character to be back in the fold.
Yeah, 100%. I think Ezra would be a waste. I think Barriss would make sense. The thing that would be the most logical to me is, you could say the 8th brother, but I honestly think it's going to be a no one.
Yeah,
I'd be okay with that. I think.
Yeah. Also, the 8th brother's kind of a nobody for, like, he's somebody, but like.
He's a dude in a mask who falls off a cliff and dies. Like, it's cool.
Yeah.
Uh, it's fine. Oh yeah. I mean, other than that, we don't like have too much to talk about with Ahsoka. I mean, it's just really
Yeah.
exciting that we
There's
finally have
an
a hard date, and I feel like it's pretty far in advance. Like it's like 2 months and a couple weeks
Yep.
from as of recording this. So actually, it's kind of nice, especially for us planning out podcasts. Charlie, look at that.
Yeah, it fits in perfectly because we planned out basically until early to mid
Until
August.
then, yeah.
Yeah, we were like
Uh,
we're like, well, as long as the show doesn't come out the first day of August, I think we're fine.
yeah,
So
that was our guess. So look at us, Charlie. All
yeah.
right. Well, we could probably spend all day just talking about Ahsoka. But I want to hop into this book we just read again.
Yeah.
Charlie and I both reread this. Coming into this, we're kind of going through chronologically through the High Republic series. And honestly, for anyone who hasn't delved into High Republic or is interested in it because, listening to the podcast, you kind of see some things about it, I recommend reading it chronologically as well.
Yeah. I'm
Because
very much of that opinion.
we can talk about this a little bit later on, but Charlie and I both we read several books before this. But we read this one before we read The Path of Deceit. The Path of Deceit single-handedly like makes everything else make sense. And that
Yeah.
is not how the books were released at all.
No. And we were like, oh shit.
Yeah, essentially. So we'll get into that. We'll get into that in a minute. But I just wanted to kind of give the plot summary for this book. And our previous book episodes, we had kind of read over this one, but I honestly feel like the plot summary is pretty. We'll talk about that in a second. But this book is kind of like got a lot going on. It's very much an adult novel with lots of intrigue. So I just want to read this verbatim from the plot summary for the book. So basically, here we go. It is an age of exploration. Jedi travel the galaxy, expanding their understanding of the Force and all worlds beings connected by it. Meanwhile, the Republic, led by its 2 chancellors, works to unite worlds in an ever-growing community among the near and distant stars. On the close orbiting planets of Iram and Arano, the growing pains of a galaxy with limited resources but unlimited ambition are felt keenly. Their hatred for each other has fueled half a decade of escalating conflict and now threatens to consume surrounding systems. The last hope for peace emerges when heirs from the 2 planets' royal families plan to marry. Before lasting peace can be established, an assassination attempt targeting the couple tilts Iram and Arano back into an all-out war. To save both worlds, Jedi Knight Gelanatai volunteers to uncover the culprit, while Chancellor Kyong appoints her son, Axel Greylark, to represent the Republic's interest in the investigation. But Axel's deep distrust of the Jedi sparks against Gela's faith in the Force. She's never met such a puffed up, privileged party boy, and he's never met a more self-serious, relentless do-gooder. The more they work to untangle the shadowy web of investigation, the more complicated the conspiracy appears to be. With accusations flying and potential enemies in every shadow, the pair will have to work together to have any hope of bringing the truth to light and saving both worlds.
Hey.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. It is very much a mystery.
It's very much a mystery, and it takes a lot of setup just to kind of get into it. But
yeah, I feel like a lot of the action is just like the other half of the book.
Yeah, and that's kind of the problem. Is like it feels like everything we just said, although that seems like, oh man, she just said the whole book. That's setup. Right?
Yeah, all of that is like the first 14 chapters out of like 34, and then like 20 it's just like, oh my god.
Yeah, it was such an interesting book. We can kind of get into it, but it was such an interesting book. And if you're interested in a book that is about intrigue, this one might be for you. Honestly, how I feel about this book, like my quick review of it. Well, most Star Wars novels really aim to deliver on sci-fi and Star Wars tropes that we all love in the community. Star Wars Convergence really takes a different path. This book reads like almost like a beautiful fantasy novel in a way, but in the Star Wars universe. We have the warrior princess, the charming prince, the honorable knight, and even your self-centered rogue. All of these characters taking center stage. So if you're looking for a daring adventure full of intrigue, this book is for you. while you might not find the deepest Star Wars lore hidden deep within Star Wars Convergence, I guarantee you will find that this book, this story, will have you hanging on each and every word. And you just might find in War in the Shadows, you never know who you can trust.
That was
I
great.
love this book, Charlie.
Yeah, it's really good.
It's
It
it
makes.
was
I'm
really
so
good.
happy I reread it though.
Yeah, I did not give it a fair shake in the first go around read. I read about half of it and was just like, what is going on? And part of that is understanding the background of the path of the open hand.
Yes, that's
And
so much of it.
and two, you and I have read enough of um the High Republic books to kind of get an idea. My view on this, if you have never read any High Republic books, could you pick this up today and read it? Yes. But if you get confused about who someone is, just look it up on Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Um, because like when they start throwing out like the mother and the path of the open hand, it makes no mention of what they actually want. However,
Yeah,
I
you
do
have no
understand.
motive.
Right. It for the overarching plot of these books, right? The way they were going about this when they first wrote it seemed to be like introducing this kind of like, I mean, they were kind of mentioned in other books, I get that, but kind of introducing like there's this dark invisible hand at the back, and they for some reason hate Jedi, and why are they want to cause so much problem and war? And that's really not even answered in this book.
Right.
um Kind of the idea of the path of the open hand of this is like, oh well, the queen of Iram uh has betrayed the path of the open hand of the deals they made, so they're going to come for her and they're going to ruin this union. But it's like it seems like a little bit more than that from the beginning.
Yeah.
I mean, even the kind of subplot there with the poison, this essentially they're going to make chemical weapons for
Yeah.
chemical warfare. That seems like a little like I did. It doesn't feel like the mother's mo. So I think it makes a little bit more sense after fact to kind of go into it. So, I mean, we'll see why she wanted that in the first place. I mean, if it's to
Yeah.
kill Jedi and
I
take
know
over the galaxy.
why.
Oh, have you read Cataclysm?
I read a little bit ahead, and so like here's the thing: you technically don't need to read the Battle of Jeddah because they basically kind of like Cataclysm when that starts, it kind of hits the ground running more so than this book does, and
Mhm.
they kind of just tell you, oh shit, everything went awry on Jeddah, and the details are kind of hazy, but it's like you can kind of connect the dots
Ah,
between oh the bio weapon, the leveler, Jeddah, the peace talks, sort of.
right, right. Okay, got you. Very cool. Well, we'll talk about this book. We'll try to keep focused on this for anybody who's interested in
Yeah,
Convergence, which, like I said, both Charlie and I highly recommend this book. Um, a really biggest thing for me was, and as I've loved in every single High Republic book, is the characterization.
agreed.
I have loved the characters. Now, did I fall in love with the characters in this as much as I fell in love with Kevmo Zink?
No, you
No.
didn't. You
But
love Kevmo.
also, is my heart now a barren, empty landscape after the death of Kevmo? Absolutely. I harbor no trust for any writer ever again, and I'm damaged. I'm damaged. And again, this will now be my running bit of I will mention Kevmo Zink and how much I hate the sequel trilogy in every episode.
Oh
So
my
we're
god.
off to a good start. Uh,
Oh shoot, I gotta bring him to Mira Morrison somehow. No.
oh yeah, true, true, true.
Keep poison free
Um,
my soul. No.
oh my god, I totally forgot about that. Anyways, I really at first I really wasn't sure about kind of our main character, Jedi Knight Gila Natai. Um, she's kind of this like brash, um, going guns a blazing, like go where the force pulls her kind of character. It reminds you a lot of like Anakin, especially in the Clone Wars. That's kind of the feeling I got. I don't know about you, Charlie.
I see that.
Yeah, and I loved this arc that she had of like she basically had before the events of this book royally screwed up a mission and lives were lost and you know lots of terror ensued and trauma ensued for her. And so she's kind of working through that in this book and beginning to not only trust herself, but to honestly trust the Force a little bit more. Um, I really loved her as a main character. I thought she was really headstrong, and it was just really fun to kind of see the world through her eyes. I honestly, it was a fun feeling going from chapter to chapter. Because this book and most High Republic books are really good. Like we get to see through a lot of different lenses of different
Yes.
characters, which is amazing. It's super fun. I'm usually a person who prefers reading from a single narrative point of view, and I actually that's like how I like to write as well. And they've all done such a great job. I love all the authors for the High Republic series, and Cordova is no exception. It was so great to go through all these, but I just found myself as soon as we'd be going from Gela to someone else. I'm like, no, take me back, take me back. I love
Yeah.
her. She has been such a fun protagonist, and I'm really excited to see more of her.
Yeah, and that's something that I really appreciate about like a bunch of the High Republic books do it, where they hop around from character to character. But I love that they kind of leave like these they kind of leave like a bit of a cliffhanger when they sometimes just jump character to character.
Oh
Like
yeah, I mean,
that
and
I
that's just leaving suspension. That's like then that's what Cordova does really well as an author. I feel like just reading this book, I was in my little like 60-second review, no joke. Like I literally would end a chapter and I might be driving to work and listening to the audiobook. I might be in bed reading and I kept finding myself being like, okay, next chapter. No, come on. I can read 10 more, like flipping to the next chapter, being like, how many pages is it? No, I can stay up. Like I can read it.
yeah.
I just really, it was really hard to put this book down and I chewed through it really quickly. Even on the reread, like I felt like I chewed through this quicker than I normally would rereading a book. She was just a super cool character. Really gave you a lot of look into what the Jedi Knights were in the High Republic era and what they meant, because I felt like she was a very typical Jedi, but she wasn't necessarily goody choo choos.
Right.
So basically, I loved that her plot arc was her going from dreading being assigned to this mission because she was with two Jedi Masters, Jedi Creighton's son and Master Roy. Oh, he's a Cerulean. I'm trying to remember his full name. Anyways, doesn't matter. We'll talk about them in a
Char-Ryl-Roy,
bit.
is that what it is?
Char-Ryl-Roy. Thank you. Yep.
Something like that.
I mean, she was like dreading being on this mission to like, oh, she really like fell in love in a familiar way, like friendship with Ziri and Phan-tu Zen, who we'll talk to in a second. And then her going to like, you know what? No, I need to seek out my own path
Yes.
and become a way seeker, explore the galaxy, help people, and just understand what my relationship is with the Force. And it was basically like, I honestly think one of the things this book does well that I've never really seen, and I really didn't think about this as I was reading it, but I was reflecting on it. This book does a really good job of like showing the mind of what a Jedi Knight would be. Like in the beginning, you kind of get the feeling like, oh, this is what a fresh Jedi Knight would be. She's still acting kind of like a Padawan in a couple
Right.
ways. And then now you're like, oh no, this is the path towards being a Jedi Master. And that's brought up in the book, like, oh, your whole life is just becoming like trying to become a Jedi Master. And she's like, no, I don't care about that. But this path, this trajectory of like, no, I just need to go out and find what the Force means. Like, no, you're like, oh, of course, like that is what being a Jedi Master is. By going through the Force, you indirectly will find that. And I really liked that feeling of just like, oh, she is on the right path. It was really refreshing as a reader to be like, oh, I feel good. I feel comfortable knowing this character has a good future after we leave this book.
Yeah.
I mean, she's going to appear in other books. We know that. So
Yeah.
hopefully that stays the same. But
me hoping that like she just doesn't somehow die, but
yeah, there's no Kevmo moment. Like,
yeah, just don't ever get too attached. A leveler can come out of nowhere and just turn your boys into some stones or whatever, some Medusa. So
happens, bro.
Happens. I hate when that happens.
But yeah, I mean, I already mentioned the two characters, but just for background, I kind of wanted we should probably talk about Iram and Arano.
Yeah.
Basically, this whole book takes place in this system where you have two planets like side by side.
Yeah,
And these
there's a
planets
moon
couldn't be more
between
different.
them, and then there's basically an asteroid belt of just like debris.
Right, from just all the wars
War.
they've had. There's just literally just a corridor of just scrap and asteroids and damaged ships.
Literal just space junk.
Yeah, I mean, literally, these planets, like one of the things they talk about in kind of their lore is just the Forever War. That's what they call their war, the Forever
Forever
War.
war.
Because they're
And
like, we've always been at war. We always remember being at war.
yeah, and it's like I think the interesting thing with that is that there's characters in this book who are in no hurry to end the war and just want to die fighting it.
Right, like they're content just going through this, and these planets could not be more different. At first, is
Yeah.
kind of what you get the feeling. Iram is this like beautiful ocean planet. Most of it is just this tumultuous water planet. Think like Moncala, which all these terrible storms and
Yeah,
things
it's
going
that they've
on.
got a little bit of land though, and then they have like
Yeah, but they
swamps
they
and
can fish and
stuff.
live with the sea, and they have rainwater and all this
Exactly.
stuff. But Arano is literally just like a desert mining planet
Yeah.
of just absolute war. Like all the characters reminded me of, oh, this is such a nerd reference, but they reminded of me of a lot of like the characters in Dune. Where just like
Everyone
there's just constant war on the desert planet. You're like, oh, okay, like I can see that.
Bird will
Like this is
love
a very
that.
common. It's so sci-fi. It's not even funny.
Yeah.
But I honestly, okay, so as Phan-tu Zed and Ziri basically the beginning they're fighting up. They're not fighting, but Ziri is fighting. When I say warrior princess, she's literally the captain, a captain
Yeah,
of her
she's like a
militaries.
rogue leader for her squadron, basically. Like,
Yeah, she's just the head of part of their navy, their air force. I forget what they call it.
yeah.
But all their ships. So she's taking the squadron out there. She gets there's kind of this sabotage that's going on that you're trying to figure out from the beginning. Someone sabotaged a ship, gonna reignite this war. She crash lands on Iram, and here comes Phan-tu Zin to rescue her from the water. And you're like, oh my gosh, this is like the Romeo and Juliet moment. And she fucking pulls a knife on him, and it's like, I'm gonna kill you. Wait, no, I'm gonna kill myself. Like,
And he's like, I swam in the ocean to get you. Why did you think I was going to kill you? Give me your knife. I'm gonna cut your seatbelt.
it was so funny. It was just like, no, I'll kill you. I'll kill me.
Don't make me do it.
Don't make me do it.
It's like the Blazing Saddles scene where he like holds himself at gunpoint and he's like, get out of an awkward situation.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah, like that from the beginning. You're like, I don't know what this is going to be, and their relationship kind of like toes the line of this Romeo and Juliet, where you're like, oh, they're going to be secretly betrothed, and like, oh no, it's like this is what's going to save the planet, and they're like, oh wait, they actually love each other. It's pretty cool. So I really enjoyed this. It was nice to have romance in Star Wars that doesn't end up with someone dying or joining the dark side.
Not yet.
Well, not yet. I don't know what happens. I'm just enjoying, someone.
All I
not
know is that
getting
these
murdered.
characters, they're gonna be in another book, and I don't know. I don't know what happens then.
Yeah, we'll just enjoy it for now, and then
Yeah.
I'll have my Kesmo's big moment later, and cry. Just be an hour of me just being upset.
I can't wait till we're so far removed to where that's gonna be the niche joke. Like
The
it's
running
it's
joke and-
it's like pretty niche, but you're gonna be the number one Kevmo Sync guy. You need
I
Twitter
am.
just for that. Just so they're like claim a character, and you're just gonna have like the zoomed in shot of Kevmo on the cover and be like,
Interesting.
"This is my guy."
But in this story, my guy was Phan-tu Zin.
Yes.
So Ziri and Phan-tu literally could not be more different, but also the same. Like it was such a fun. Like I love the writing here. Ziri, like I said, she's a warrior princess and this warrior planet, and she takes her task very seriously. And she's more involved. She considers herself more of a soldier than a princess. And Phan-tu Zin was like literally
I'm the
his
adopted
his
prince.
he's
Like,
the adopted prince. His family's killed in a storm, and he's just out here like, oh, I'm gonna lead my people and do the best I can. And you're just like,
yeah.
I love this guy. He's so nice. He's so
I
good.
also
He's
like that
willing to
they like
fight
kind
for
of flip
anybody.
like there's kind of tropes with that, both of
The
those.
yeah, the
But like,
heroine.
yeah. Like I feel like they flipped the hero heroine sort of thing where it was like I'm really glad that it was like
Oh,
the
Ziri's
woman
saving
was
everybody's
the
ass
soldier
all the
and it
time.
wasn't just like the generic guy who's like, oh, it's the like, like not to like knight in shining armor sort of deal, you know what I mean?
No,
Like
but
where
you're
you
exactly right. It
like
was really refreshing.
yeah, because we just normally see those roles even if it's in like a kid's cartoon or like a fairy tale sort of thing. To where it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, but they're like, yeah, but everyone likes that woman. But it's like in this one, it's like, no, everyone likes the guy, and she's a badass. It's
Yeah, it's so funny to me because like in a way, like we're talking about this and I'm like, oh god, neckbeards would freak out. And I'm like, but it's so funny because like in the history of Star Wars, if you're looking at from the very beginning, like strong female leads are literally the entirety of
yeah,
this franchise. And like Ziri, I would argue, is a stronger female than our main character, Gela. Because Ziri is just like insanely badass, and like there's a scene where she's just like, yeah, this guy is trying to come at me and he's challenging me, so I'm just gonna fight him with a knife as we do on our planet. You're like,
yeah, I
this
love
seems
that.
reckless, but okay. It's she was super, like most of the action is this character, and then all of your like heartfelt, I'm gonna save the people and I'm gonna do what I love, like what I think of like Zelda, that
Right?
style of like heroine, where it's just like, oh, I'm gonna give myself over to the light and like help people. That's Phan-tu Zen. It's like I'm getting people out and doing all this stuff. He does a couple fights. He's not like some weakling or anything like that. And
Yeah,
actually, one of the more fun scenes is Ziri and Phan-tu fighting on the Paxian. Not fighting, but sparring.
yeah.
That was fun. So,
There's a lot of fun
um,
scenes in this book that I really love.
yeah, and it's just because the characters were so good. But
Yeah,
cannot say the characters were so good and we loved the interaction without introducing the Star Wars himbo himself, the Giga Chad of Star Wars, the High Republic
I
Twitters.
I so hope they put him in something live action at some point ever.
Literally got to be the hottest dude in all of Star Wars. Axel Greylark, the man, the myth, the legend, the rogue, the scoundrel, the son of the Chancellor, Prince of the Republic, Prince of Coruscant, Axel Greylark. Man, this guy, what can't you say about him? He is super cool. He's a giant piece of shit.
I love him.
He is literally sex drive incarnate. He flirts with everything and anything,
It's
including
true.
old scoundrel ladies who want to sell his friends essentially into like fighting slavery.
Yeah,
That whole Gela
like the
thing at the end of the
arena.
book.
Yeah, the arena. I love
Yeah,
that one moment where like uh they like see Gala get out and let Axel's like perfectly fine out getting off the Eventide the ship. Axel's like freshly showered and like everything and like new clothes,
covered
and
in
she's
blood.
just like covered in blood and beat up. I'm like, what happened to her? And he's like, I kind of sold her into a fighting arena to the death. And then Fon2's just like, that'll do it.
How did you feel about Axel? Because I have my thoughts on like the
Okay,
arc of Axel and like how I started to love him.
here's the thing. He's he's a piece of shit, but he's got a good heart, but he won't admit it to himself.
We all know a guy. We all know a guy,
I know
a
like
gal, a
too many
person
people
like
like
that.
that.
Unfortunately, he's self-destructive. That's all he is. He's
Yes.
dealing with his trauma by destroying himself, and he's also a degenerate who wants to like. He literally jokes like 8 times in the book. Like he'll bed anyone. He's been engaged 3 times but
Times.
never married.
Yep.
There's so many like fun throwaway lines about this character that he is like. I hope this if this was a more popular book and like more people reading High Republic, he would be a class of characters in Star Wars.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's your Greylark. That's just the the really hot guy who does everything. It is kind of like, in a way,
He's
like
somewhere
if
between
Han's
Batman and a bard.
yeah, it's so true. Because like at any moment they're like, oh, this is just some prince of Coruscant. He can't do anything, and then he's just like that Danny DeVito meme and just starts blasting.
So I started blasting.
He kills like 80 people in this entire thing. I mean, there's the twist that he's more of a degenerate than we would have thought.
Yeah.
Which did you see coming? Did you see Axel being low-key a villain?
I was initially surprised. But it's been so long since I first read it to where I'm like, how was my initial reaction? I think it was like one of those things where I was upset, but I wasn't surprised. Sort of deal where I'm like, this makes sense, but come on, man.
And I think that I think talking about like disappointment points out very well how I felt about these main 4 characters here. I was looking at them like they were my friends.
Right.
Like that the emotions I felt were like, oh, those are my friends. Like Ziri and Phan-tu was like, no, now kiss. Like, no, you two are falling in love. Like, you don't know it yet, but you are.
Yeah.
Axel, you're like, dude, come on. Like, it's that self-destructive guy that we all have in our lives. You're like, care about you. I don't want to care about you. It'd make my life so much easier if I didn't. What is going on?
Incredibly relatable.
And then Gela is kind of that like friend who's just better than everyone, and it kind of pisses you off, but you can't be mad at them because it's just
but now she's falling in love with the degenerate.
Yeah, okay, let's talk about that. Was I expecting them to go full force or into this like, oh, they're gonna like low-key have a crush on each other, or did I think this was just gonna be kind of a tease throughout the entire story? I should have looked more into the fact that Cordova being the author, was a romance author and has written many romance novels. That shows. Let me tell you, folks, there is some tension in this book. I mean, the actual romance is great. They don't go too much into Gela and actual Greylark, but it's just enough to be like,
everything's on a like emotional level with them. Like whenever they talk about it in this book, it is entirely
it's a
like
relationship.
Yeah, but like he's closed off, and then there's like a moment where she can tell when he's like he's not being defensive, he's being like truthful at that time.
He's broken down, and she can read through him and feel his emotions.
Yeah.
Good, Charlie. So good.
Suddenly become vaguely Italian with the hand gestures.
Good. Yeah, I really like these characters, and I think the thing about Axel Greylark, they did a really good job with him. He was introduced and he was in Riz Incarnate. That's good. That was another line I should have said. He is Riz Incarnate. They do a lot of great background work on establishing like why is he just an utter crazy psychopath essentially. He is the king of degenerates. Why? And you know, it's getting into his tumultuous relationship with his mother, and then throughout the book it's kind of like his dad died and he blames the Jedi for it.
Yep.
And that kind of explains why he was working with the Path of the Open Hand, you know, why he had that resentment towards Jedi. I mean, he's very hostile, and one of the things that like he might start to like me moment is he stops like saying the word Jedi with so much malice, which seems like such a low bar, but like you know, it worked. You know, he's got all this trauma in his life. He feels like he's never been able to be his own person. And
his mom doesn't really help. And she's like, I don't know what to do. I'm being chancellor.
Even in the end, I felt kind of dirty on the fact that like he did all this stuff. And in the end, he basically decides, hey, I'm destroying the thing I was here to like help steal and get rid of, which was this bioweapon.
Right.
I'm going to destroy it no matter what happens. And he ends up getting sent to jail for like, what was it? Like terrorism, conspiracy, a whole murder.
Yeah. You know, also just kind of calling an entire gang of bounty hunters to show up and crash a wedding was probably not helpful.
Okay, yeah, that was shitty. I'm not gonna lie.
That
I
was
forgot about
like,
that part.
yeah, I was like, that's a lot.
So in the book,
You
there's
couldn't
this
have like put
scene.
it like adjacent to it. I don't know. You can't tell me there's no other plant like buildings on this planet.
Yeah, so there's a
There's
scene
no
where
like deli out front.
in the middle of this, like, well, right before this
No
wedding,
food trucks.
between Ziri and Phan-tu, he puts a tracker. What we later learn is a tracker, but it's just like, oh, he put this little device on this little beacon on like a plant pot or something. It was something really small and really stupid.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, okay. And then you're like, where are all these bounty hunters coming from at the wedding? And like 2 Jedi died because of this also. Like we can't really forget that because of Axel's actions, like a lot of people died, including 2 Jedi, which
Yeah.
maybe that should have affected me less than like thousands of people dying, but they're unnamed. They're just
they're unnamed, but
they're NPCs.
Well, if it's a book, no one's actually playable, so
no one's playable.
Is that how perspective works? No.
I'm not sure. I don't know. But yeah, it's like I still felt bad for him at the end, which is like
It's
maybe
weird.
it's a weird feeling that it's like, yeah, this guy's a horrible person. So many people have died. Maybe so many people will have lived because of him not, helping destroy this weapon essentially.
Oh yeah.
But also he should be in prison. Very much so. I do feel bad for him. He's a quizmaster, and I wanted him to love Gela very much. But also, you're a bad guy. You're a very bad guy.
He is. Yeah, he definitely is. He's a
the entire relationship
scumbag
as a reader
through and through.
Through and through. The entire relationship as a reader is love hate. That's it.
Yeah, but I enjoy the degeneracy so much.
We all need a degenerate in our life. Well, yeah, I really love the setting of this book. And when I say that, like, I think the setting was cool, having these 2 planets side by side, because it gave so much, like, I don't want to say tension. Like, war could happen at any moment. It wasn't like across the system. It could just be here and done.
Yeah.
But I loved getting into like the court politics. And I usually am not a person who likes political kind of books, but this was more of the intrigue, like the mystery side of it. Like, oh, we're getting into like, why does this monarch hate the other people, and like, why does he
people
hold
are
so
getting
much
assassinated?
People are getting assassinated, and you're like, oh my god, it was because people's son died in the war, and like some tragic war story. And then there's just people who like, I want war forever, and
we are the true, yeah, what, like the true sons of
the true
Erno?
children of Erno, the true,
that's
true children of Erno. And it's like, you've got Viceroy Farrell leading, essentially trying to like stage this rebellion against the Union, and literally committing what we would call war crimes and violations of the Geneva Convention.
Classic Star Wars.
Classic Star Wars, dressing as the enemy. Strapping bombs to your own people. We're like,
well, yeah.
Okay.
It's false flagging.
War crime simulator. Yeah, false flagging it. It was brutal. Like, so much
friendly fire.
So much stuff happens in this that you're just like, Viceroy Farrell literally convinced a guy to jump out of the airlock so he could later blame that guy for killing someone.
It's true.
It's the most convoluted bullshit ever, but that's just like this book. There's so much intrigue, and you're like, yeah, wait, why did that guy jump out of that? And then like 13 chapters, it's like, do you remember the guy who jumped out of the airlock and yeeted himself into space? It was actually because of this. And you're like, oh shit, that makes no sense, but also it makes a lot of sense. Just any mystery novel ever, you're like, yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah. There's so much here. Also,
it's hard to talk. No, go for it.
Oh, I want to talk about the. Oh shoot! What's the guy that's Akbar species? Oh, why am I blanking? But the guy,
Chancellor Mallow.
No, that's the Quarren.
Oh yeah, he's a Quarren. That's right. What is Akbar?
But there's the guy who's like the sheriff or whatever, or the marshal. in the one
Oh,
town, but I just love that he's just on a desert planet. He's just like, can't really move.
yeah. Oh my God. What is it?
Mon Cala, I'm
Oh,
dumb. I'm a
yeah,
silly
yeah,
goose. They're calamari.
yeah. They're Mon Calamari. The greatest name, by the way. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah.
still just
He's
squid.
a Mon Cala. So he's from Mon Cala, and he's literally just this like squid desert cowboy, and you're like, why the fuck are you here? Like,
Yeah, he's like, the desert's rough on me, son.
he's like has to pot. Is he talking to Gela, right?
Yeah, in the
Yeah,
bar, they're doing
he's
shots.
talking to
Basically,
Gela in a bar,
they're like
and they're
nursing
like,
like a terrible liquor from scorpion
oh,
juice.
it's during a celebration of like the lives of all the people that died in this fight, and it's literally like she's having this terrible drink. The sheriff comes over, and like they're having this conversation, and like in the middle of it, he's like, hold on, pause, I gotta like re-oil up my
My
voice and like
glands, like,
my glands. He's like wearing this special helmet and like all this stuff, and she's like, no, you're good, take your time. And then from there on, like every other sentence, he's like, hold on, my mucus is like off. Why is this in the
loved it.
book? It was so funny. I totally like, I don't know if it was intended to be funny, but it definitely was.
Oh, it is.
I'm glad you brought that up. That was like one of the silliest moments in this book. And that's the funny part about the Convergence is it literally goes from being like court intrigue and politics and all this mystery to like now these characters are having off the wall
It's
conversations
in a bar.
and in a bar, and they're flirting with each other,
There's some
and
pessimistic lady who's like, I hate the Jedi.
I hate X, I hate Y, I hate Z, and actual Greylark's like, well, if I was one of those things, I'd fuck me too. I was like, it's like, huh, okay.
So
I
good.
guess this is where we are. But it was great because it's like I don't mean to say that this book is really just separate. It's just as a reader, you're just kind of like moving from thing to thing. You're kind of enjoying it.
And
You're
it
able to
works,
like
but it's like,
you're
it's
not in any one place for too long. Like you're kind of popping from these different emotional beats, and I just it's really nice. As someone who's read quite a few of what are the books and now legends from different series, I will say we're pretty fucking spoiled when it comes to High Republic and a lot of the new books we're getting.
they're so
Some
good.
of the writing and the old books we had in Star Wars, especially that came out like pretty soon after the original trilogy, ass, just ass.
Do
Just
you
so poorly written.
do you know how absurd the names were too? Like, these are Star Wars
Oh,
names, but they were just like, yes, and this name has 13 commas, an X, Y, and a V in the middle of it.
oh,
Do you
and
know
by the
how
way,
hard
you
it was
referenced
for
the name
like
100 times.
how hard it was for like 10-year-old me to like try to read Yuzon Vong with no concept of what the fuck was happening picking up in the middle of a book?
Oh my god, Yuzong Vong. Yeah, like we used to do, like you could think the High Republic's convoluted and like what about the Jedi and the Empire? And it's like well, you literally used to have a space bug race come from out in wild space, basically between another galaxy, and try to take over ours.
Who were not affected by the Force. Like,
We're so spoiled. It's not even funny. I enjoyed this book so much, Charlie. It
yeah.
was such a good time.
Also,
I
everything.
really recommend.
Yeah, everything feels
No,
so
you're
much
good.
more well, like, put
Thought
together.
out, planned.
Yeah.
It's cohesive. The way I think about it is we are in a car driving at night, and each book is like our headlights,
Lights.
and we can see a little
I
bit
heard this
more.
metaphor today on a podcast.
Really, that's
Was
hilarious.
it
Yeah.
What was it? Was not related to this, but it was something so serious. It was on like my world politics podcast, Pod Save the World. It was, I want to say it was some, I don't know if it was running for president or if it was like relations with Iran.
Star Wars, Iran relations.
But it was literally the same thing. I'm like, I'm having deja vu right now.
But yeah, and I love that. I do kind of like over rely on that metaphor, but it does. It's really nice because it does feel like there is a set destination. We don't know how we get there, but like we feel like the road is just going to keep going straight. Like we don't feel like the road's just going to
Yeah.
stop.
As long
We're
as you
taking
look at what's
right
ahead, you'll
turns.
get to your destination still.
Yeah, and you trust it. Like you feel like, hey, I can't see everything, but we're here right now. Um, and it was very refreshing to get this book and just feel like, okay, I don't necessarily need more of just like, okay, I need to understand what's happening in the High Republic. It was nice to just have a book that's like about war and love and conflict and mystery and
Yeah,
intrigue.
it's
And
still
as
on this
much as we
personal
could
level,
talk,
but it's still on a planetary level too.
like when we talked about Path of Deceit, it's a young adult novel, but like I felt like there was a lot about the philosophies of the characters and the Force and what the Path of the Open Hand was about, and a lot of change in the characters. And this is just like gunfights and ships and people kissing, and actual Greylark telling people he's gonna be kissing them, but he never
And
does,
he's just
which
like,
is a
"Would you
whole
like
other
to
thing.
unrobe me?" I love that
Uh,
his Riz flusters her repeatedly. Where she's like, "I need to like not."
like, you know, I can't have attachments. He's like, attach yourself to this, bitch. Like it's so great. And it's so funny because like you as a reader, Gelanatai is what you're like, yeah, she's not going, like she's not affected by any of this. She doesn't care about Axel other than the fact that he's like inside a good person. Unaffected, doesn't care that
She's like
he's like,
more intrigued because she's like, "Why? What's wrong with you?"
and she tells them that verbatimly throughout the book. She's like, why do you do this? Like, this is annoying.
He's like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "This is what you're
uh,
doing, and it's a bad coping mechanism."
oh man. Charlie, anything else you want to talk about with Convergence, Star Wars Convergence here?
I think that pretty much does it. Overall, it was a really fantastic book. It was fun. Re-listening to the audiobook at like 1.7 speed over the past 2 days to re refamiliarize myself with it. But it's great. I love this book.
Yeah, I think bringing up the audiobook is really great. I really um, enjoyed the audio production of this. I read this originally in print, and then just to kind of go over it as well, I was listening. I was doing both. I was listening it, reading it at home. Um, I really love the production, of the audiobook. It's really fun. It's a good time. Charlie and I always love to harp on. I'm a big reader, and I, as a person who like aspires to be a writer, I love audiobooks. I think it's one of the greatest things. I think more and more people should not be afraid. If that's how you read, that's how you should read. And Star Wars, like if you love
They're so good.
audiobooks,
They spoil
they're
you.
literally they're so good. They're audio dramas. There's music. Some of them have their own sound effects and music. It's just a mind blowing experience. So
Yeah,
I
you
really
like
recommend.
if you
I
go to other
honestly I
ones,
might.
you're like, "Oh, it's just a guy reading."
Yeah, it's just a guy reading. It's
I
not
was
the
like,
author, which
you don't have a score for your book.
there's no sound effects.
You
You're not
don't
gonna
have
put
gunshots in this book.
you're not gonna put a voice modulation on your voice actor when he does the Mal Calamari voice, or you know, like it's just
Axel, somebody died. It isn't funny.
yeah, yeah, and that's exactly it. That's
Great.
exactly it. Like I love the production of this book. The audiobook was really great. I would really, if
You
you
need the
like
audiobook
audiobooks,
Cataclysm, by the way,
I will. I plan to.
solely for the
If
accent,
Oh, good.
the
I'll get into
Scottish
that. All right.
accent.
Oh God, you told me about this. Final thoughts. Final thoughts. Let's just keep ourselves focused because this book is just bringing out a lot of fun in us. My final thoughts on this book. I said a lot in my 60-second review that I think sets up for like why you should read this. But my final thoughts on this book. I really enjoyed the characterization. This was a book that was refreshing in the High Republic series because it actually felt like it went somewhere rather than just like this is the hard stop. We see how X got to Z. Now everybody is dead, or these characters will not show up for another 5 books.
Right.
Um, this was nice to go, oh, I will return to these characters who I've learned to love so much in the next book. And then when they die in the next book, I will be very sad.
Very
Uh,
sad. I love
very
that we
sad.
don't know that it's happening and we're just assuming it.
I have to prepare for the worst. I really loved that this book, it really didn't take this like, oh, like everything is about the Jedi and the path and the world and the light and the universe. And it was just like, oh no, Jedi, like Gela is going through her own Jedi path, and that is through this plot that is going
Yeah.
on here with the planets of Irem and Iroh.
Arano.
Iroh, Jesus. Aaron,
Iroh, uncle.
Iroh. I really like the fact that this put the Jedi plot on the back order, the back order, the back burner, put it on the back burner, and that actually highlighted it more. That her path with the Force was a part of what was going on in the universe, and I think that really kind of highlighted what Gela's path would be at the end. And it was super fun. I really liked Axel as a character. Phan-tu, Zen, and Ziri. I loved the way that we took these two warring planets, found two characters who you at the end believe truly love each other, and we're left with this kind of nice, fuzzy, happy ending. I mean, talk about the fact that the wedding scene, they're like having to speed through their vows as these bounty hunters are storming in, and then they like go through all their vows, and then she pulls out a gun, she shoots a guy, like shoots another guy, and he's like, are you gonna kiss me? They have this hot steamy kiss, and then shoot like 8 other people. It was literally like the dumbest. If this was a movie, no one would watch this and be able to take that seriously, but because it's in print, you're like, that's badass. That's so
oh my god, someone wrote that.
Someone wrote that. But if it was in a movie, you'd be like, is this
That's
like
crazy.
Fast and the Furious 12? Like, it's just over.
It actually
top,
just
like
becomes
nothing.
Star Wars at that point.
Yeah,
Gone to space, now they've gone to a galaxy far, far away. Get ready for the fast and the turbulence.
Oh. Well, yeah, that's really all I have. I really hope if you haven't read this book, you go read it. Even if you just want to like go pop it on an audiobook, go read it. It's a super fun time. It's an easy listen. I don't think you need a lot to get in it. You just might have some questions going out about the mother and stuff like that, but that's really kind of some subplots that aren't important to the overall plot. You could have a lot of fun listening to this book. But I think it is also good to kind of, if I was going to say, hey, you want to read the High Republic, get an understanding of what's going on in the general sense, and you just want an introduction, this isn't a bad place to start. I might recommend Light of the Jedi as your first book, but still a super fun time.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this. I love the characters and all their relationships. I think there's banter. I really like how you mentioned like Gela's Jedi. I really like that. Like, her as a Jedi in the story, she feels entirely unique to everyone around her. People don't really make presumptions of what she thinks of the world, necessarily. Like, and then you have Axel, who has conflicting negative thoughts about the Jedi, and his thoughts of the Jedi, those, like, run a direct parallel to, like, Trace and Rafa in Season 7 of Clone Wars, where it's like, oh, literally one of my parents died, and someone was like, it's the will of the Force, man. So I really appreciate just like how varied this cast is. Like, everyone feels unique and distinct, and I really appreciate that as a reader, especially for someone who is awful at keeping track of characters.
Yeah, that can be hard when you have all these Jedi characters are the same, but it's just everyone occupied their own niche. That's where I really felt with
it
that
flips perspectives
side.
You can tell just kind of like subtly by like the writing style, when it's like, okay, I can tell because it's explaining it this way that this is an Axel chapter, this is a Gela chapter, this is a Phan-tu. Like, I really
100%.
appreciate that.
Yeah, it was really well written. I really enjoyed Cordova's work. I'm excited to read more of it in the High Republic. Just had a great time. I really urge you guys to go listen to it and have as much fun reading it or listening to it as we did.
Yep. You want to take us home?
Cool. Yeah, absolutely. Well, everybody, Thank you for tuning in from all across the galaxy. If you liked the episode, please consider subscribing to our podcast and sharing with a friend or a family member who might enjoy it. If you want to interact with us, help us make the show even better, consider interacting with us on our Discord or on Twitter using links in the show notes. Once again, though, thanks for tuning in. Goodbye. May the force be with you.
May the force be with you.